high-pressure fuel pump is integrated in the engine timing on the gear unit side above the starter. A combination oil and vacuum pump is secured from below on the engine block and enclosed by the sump. The oil and vacuum pump is driven by a separate timing chain. For the first time in an Opel engine, the oil filter housing is integrated in the sump. A two-piece timing case permits better accessibility. As a result, the engine timing can be serviced or the cylinder head removed without having to remove the transmission. The blow-by-oil separator system is integrated in the plastic cylinder head cover. A turbocharger with variable geometry increases the airflow through the B16DTH. Sheathed glow plugs with an integrated pressure sensor allow the engine to run in a closed loop. The diesel particulate filter with catalytic converter is fitted near the engine. The Opel Blue injection system is new. This allows the reductant AdBlue to be injected into the exhaust system to further reduce emissions. These measures mean that the engine already meets the future Euro 6 exhaust emission standard. The servicing work in this video is carried out as an example on a right-hand drive Zafira Tourer. For better accessibility when removing and installing the high-pressure pump, the battery, after being disconnected, is removed together with the battery tray. To remove the intake manifold, detach the wiring trough from the intake manifold. For further removal of the wiring harness, release and remove the 4 injector wiring harness plugs. Undo the bolts and clips on the wiring harness bracket. Unlock and remove the wiring harness plug for the exhaust gas temperature sensor, the fuel rail pressure sensor, the manifold absolute pressure sensor and the glow plugs, and the camshaft position sensor and intake manifold actuator. Undo the clips and place the wiring harness as far as possible behind the intake manifold. On the gear unit side, unclip the coolant hose. Unlock and remove the wiring harness plug of the EGR vacuum solenoid valve and the heated oxygen sensor of the exhaust pressure differential sensor and the EGR valve. Undo the fastening bolt of the charge air pipe and remove the pipe from the throttle body. Remove the vacuum line. Undo both bolts in the EGR cooler and the intake manifold to allow the EGR pipe and the gasket to be removed. Undo the 4 bolts of the bracket on the intake manifold and EGR cooler and remove the bracket. Remove the fuel return pipe from the fuel rail, known as the common rail, and remove the return pipe bracket from the intake manifold. On the common rail, remove the insulator and place a cloth beneath it to catch any emerging fuel. Then undo the high pressure line from the common rail. Undo the bolt on the bracket for the high pressure line. From below, undo the high pressure line from the high pressure pump. Remove the high pressure line from above. Close the connections with suitable caps. Undo the 2 bolts in the high pressure line bracket. Disconnect the wiring harness plug directly at the fuel rail pressure sensor and move the bracket back. A mirror will help you to undo the fastening bolts for the intake manifold. Follow the sequence specified in the service literature. Remove the intake manifold. After preliminary work, the high-pressure pump can be removed. To do this, open the seal and then remove the fuel feed pipe and close it off. Remove the fuel injector fuel return hose. Disconnect the wiring harness plug of the fuel injection pump metering valve. Remove the fuel return pipe and close it off. Close off the connections at the high pressure pump. To allow the high pressure pump to be removed, a service opening is provided in the timing case cover. To facilitate access to the service opening, remove the charge air bypass regulator solenoid valve vacuum tube from the EGR valve regulator solenoid valve, then remove the selector lever cable from the gear shift and move it back. The closure cap for the service opening is removed using a special tool. When applying the special tool, ensure that its recesses engage firmly in the journals of the timing case cover. Insert the spike in the special tool and, using slight pressure, turn it until it penetrates the rubber layer of the closure cap. As shown here, there is a slotted opening in the closure cap. If the spike is now rotated through 90 degrees, the closure cap can be tapped out using the special tool. Remove the closure cap from the special tool. Another special tool is used to fix the sprocket for the high-pressure pump in place. Make sure that the journals of the tool fit snugly in the grooves of the sprocket. Fix the special tool in place and, at the same time, the sprocket by screwing in the sleeve. Using an extension, counterhold and undo the sprocket fastening nut. Undo the nut completely and remove it. The two fastening bolts on the high-pressure pump can now be removed. Remove the high-pressure pump from its guide in the cylinder block by tapping it with an aluminium mandrel in order to prevent the timing case cover from being damaged when removing the high-pressure pump. The sprocket is forced off the high-pressure pump by screwing the spindle into the special tool. Caution! Observe the data on maximum torque in the service literature in order to prevent damage to the timing case cover. The high-pressure pump can now be removed by turning it. Unscrew the spindle for forcing off the sprocket. To facilitate installation of the high-pressure pump, mark the position on the shaft of the wedge at the front. A mirror can be very helpful for inserting the high-pressure pump correctly. Insert the high-pressure pump with a new gasket by turning it. Until the mark on the shaft, and thereby the wedge, fits exactly in the groove on the sprocket. Screw in the two high-pressure pump fastening bolts and tighten them as specified in the service literature. Screw in the sprocket fastening nut and tighten as specified in the service literature. Detach the immobilizing tool. Insert a new closure cap for the service opening in the special tool. Insert the special tool correctly in the journals of the timing case cover. And tap in the closure cap until it hits the stop. Check that the closure cap is seated correctly. It must be slightly deeper than the edge of the housing all around. Once the closure cap has been fitted correctly, reinstall the selector lever cable. Connect the vacuum line. At the high-pressure pump, remove the sealing plug and reconnect and lock the fuel lines and wiring harness plug. Fit a new gasket to the intake manifold and insert. Use a mirror to insert the fastening bolts. And tighten in the sequence specified in the service literature. Insert and lock the fuel rail pressure sensor wiring harness plug. Install the bracket for the high pressure line. Unscrew the closure caps and screw the high pressure line hand tight to the common rail and the high pressure pump. Install the high pressure line on the bracket. From below and from above, tighten the nuts for the high pressure line as indicated in the service literature. Remove the cloth and apply the insulator for the common rail. Screw the fuel return pipe bracket onto the intake manifold. And install the fuel return pipe with a new clamp. Attach the bracket on the gear unit side. Insert the EGR pipe with new gaskets and screw it into place. Then attach the vacuum line. Apply and lock the charge air pipe onto the throttle body, then screw firmly in place. Connect and secure the 4 wiring harness plugs. Fasten the coolant hose. Connect and lock the wiring harness plug for the intake manifold and injection system wiring harness. Connect and lock the wiring harness plugs for the injectors. And fix the wiring harness in place. Screw the wiring trough onto the intake manifold. Then install the battery tray with the battery and clamp the battery into place.